when you look at mountaineering and outdoor adventures from a purely analytical standpoint, it's full of suffering. Like there's the physical pain, the environment is always trying to kill you. It can be isolating, it can be dangerous, it can be scary. What makes all the difference is who you're doing that with and whether you can trust them.
That's Isabelle Riddle. Isabelle is a 20-something-year-old woman living in Bozeman, Montana. In 2023, she spent over 75 days on wilderness adventures. She's an EMT, has over 200 hours of climbing instruction, and has organized backpacking, caving, and climbing trips to help her less experienced friends enjoy the outdoors too. Isabelle was born with a deformity in her eye, which required extensive surgeries. It still affects her eyesight today, and she's blind in one eye. Also, after years of painful symptoms without an answer, Isabelle was diagnosed with the autoimmune disease lupus, which can bring pain, fatigue, and other symptoms to both daily life and her outdoor adventures.
I'm Angie, and this is See Her Outside, brought to you by the Karen Project and the Summit Scholarship Foundation. We share stories of women and gender-diverse adventurers to promote belonging and visibility in natural spaces. We hope that this story inspires you to advocate for a more inclusive outdoors.
Scroll through the pages of many outdoor outfitter websites and you'll read the same statements. Everybody belongs in nature. The mountains don't discriminate. Everybody is welcome here. Inviting people of all backgrounds and abilities to wilderness trips is one thing. Actually serving them, making them comfortable and inspired to be a steward of the land, is where many companies get stuck. After all, for most of modern history, our society has equated serving someone with a disability with sheltering them from the world. Our culture too often tells people of differing abilities to avoid risk altogether. So many companies avoid making changes to their gear, trip design, guide training, and even marketing tools that would foster a more welcoming environment for all. As a result, adventure becomes inaccessible for many people. But we can all change that by listening to stories of adventurers who are breaking the very barriers that our society has placed on them outdoors.
I'm new to the world of outdoor sports and adventure. When I was in college, I received a scholarship to attempt a summit of Mount Kilimanjaro. And the first night of that climb was my first night ever backpacking, first night ever sleeping in a tent. So I was thrown right into the mix of it. And from that moment forward, I was absolutely hooked. And then after college, I worked with a nonprofit that used outdoor adventure to mentor underserved youth. And so that role sort of confirmed the suspicion that I had been brooding on at Kilimanjaro, that outdoor adventure was about so much more than just the beautiful scenery and the physical challenge. It was about like building a trusting community in which we can try hard things.
Isabelle has spent the past few years seeking more wilderness experiences to build on her skill set. When she saw the Summit Scholarship Foundation's opportunity to apply for an all-women's Mount Baker climb in Washington State, she jumped at the chance to hone both her rope team and her altitude skills. She also saw Mount Baker as a landscape to help her deepen and share her Native American identity with others. Isabelle has a self-described complicated relationship with that aspect of her identity. Her father is a member of the Cherokee Nation, and he grew up on tribal land in Oklahoma. Her family's experience on tribal land was rife with violence and poverty, and her father has tried to shield Isabelle from that history. But still, over the years, she's felt a pull to explore her background more deeply. She joined the Native American Student Union in college, has assisted with programs to boost Native enrollment in colleges, and she attends Cherokee meetups. In Isabelle's words, "I feel my identity most strongly when I am living close to the earth."
Somebody else added, I thought this was
true as well, that when you're outside with other people, you're forced to, talk about peeing or what if you get your period and just like the stuff that is affecting all of us, but you wouldn't talk about necessarily at school or at home. And that makes me wonder about your experience.
I think one of the reasons is because there's less technology when you're outdoors. When we're at work or at school or in these more everyday spaces, there's always that tendency to pick up your phone. If there's an awkward silence, you can just pick up your phone and look at it. I feel like when you're sort of disconnected from the world and from other distractions, you have to turn inwards to the group that you're with. And I think also when you're on an outdoor adventure, you have to rely on other people so much more. There's always a problem that needs to be solved or a state of sort of unease about the conditions that you're in. There's always a challenge coming at you. So you have to be reliant on other people to feel secure and to feel safe and to continue tackling those problems that arise.
How did it feel to go on an expedition in an all women's climb? And what do you think makes that different than just going with a mixed gender climb?
A breath of fresh air for me to go on an all women's climb. So many of the expeditions that I've been on in the past have had this view that the team is conquering the mountain, and there's also a competitiveness amongst the climbers to be the fastest or the strongest or the boldest. And as a woman and as someone who's new to this sport, I often felt on expeditions in the past on mixed gender teams that I was sort of like this token climber, that the other people, they were being nice to drag me along out of charity in a way. But there's an assumption that I couldn't or that I didn't want to take on real work and real responsibilities and those leadership roles. But my experience on Baker being in an all women's team felt so different. There was just an underlying assumption that I was capable and an assumption that I was interested in learning and taking on leadership roles in the team. And I feel like this team also realized that we were there for so much more than to reach the summit of the mountain. We were there for that community, to support each other, to learn, to grow. And there was also just an understanding that we were only as strong as a team as our weakest link in that moment was, and that if you were the weakest link in one moment, it didn't really detract from your worth for the entire team. And I also loved how vulnerability and boundaries were encouraged, and there was just a culture of respecting and setting boundaries and sharing stories and being vulnerable.
I'm curious about how you're describing this weakest link feeling, because I think so often we get these empowering messages, of course, that are like, you're all so strong all the time. And it's all feel good, and that's valid and needed too. But I think there's something to be said for that lesser talked about side of like, hey, you're having a weak moment right now. I'm curious, do you remember feeling like you were the weakest link at any point in the climb? And if so, how did you get out of it mentally or physically?
So I have poor eyesight. I'm blind in one eye, which makes depth perception a challenge for me. So climbing on steep terrain can really wig me out and throw me into a panic. This has been something that I've struggled with as I've gotten into outdoor sports and adventure. So I remember during one of the steepest sections of the climb, a cloud blew over us. So we were fully in a whiteout, and it was just completely white all around. And all I could see was like the tip of my crampon in the ice. And it just looked like you could fall off the side of the world. And my heart rate started to increase. And I remember just like almost going down on my hands and knees, like thinking in my mind that I could use my hands to sort of protect myself. It was going really slowly, and I remember Sunny came close to me and just very calmly was like, "You got this. Your hands are not going to help you. That's going to make it worse. You've got this. Like, your team has you right now. And I remember Carly too sharing some tips that had helped her with these same feelings, and just internalizing their encouragement and then giving myself that same grace and that same encouragement. Whereas in the past, in moments like that, I've sort of spiraled into thoughts of like, why am I even out here on this mountain if I have this vision limitation that makes it hard for me to climb on steep terrain? Why am I slowing the team down? Why can't I just get over this? And in that moment, with the encouragement of other people, I was able to like sort of mimic those positive affirmations they were giving me. And in my own head, I was like, you've got this. Your team has you. You're safe. Like, it's not a race. And that really helped me to get through those moments when I was like scared.
Do you have any tips for anyone else who might have limited vision when they're doing these big expeditions that require you to read the terrain and see in different types of lighting and all of that?
I think, first of all, be willing to share it with your teammates, share it early and share often. Like, remind people that you have this difference so they can look out for you and understand sort of where you're coming from. And hopefully, if you're with the right people, they can give you the support that you need and the understanding. Always bring a second pair of glasses. If I had lost my glasses out there, I would have been sunk. Eye protection as well. Like, I wore ski goggles basically the entire climb. And then a piece of advice, actually, that the guys on Baker gave me that I have been using even to this day, is that your breath comes first. Your breath comes before the steps. So if you're starting to feel like you're out of control, like you might fall, focus on your breath, calm the breath down first, and then those calm steps will follow. And that's something that I use almost every time that I'm hiking on steep terrain now. Yeah.
Or in life, like what a beautiful life metaphor. Earlier, you mentioned what it felt like to be tokenized, like when people share a wild space with somebody to make them feel like they're doing a good deed. Would you mind sharing an example from your past adventures so that we can all think more critically about whether we've tokenized others before or maybe experienced it ourselves?
So the work that I do now, I work as a field ecologist. So I'm often on steep mountain terrain, on mountain ridges, studying a high elevation pine tree, which involves hiking every day on very difficult terrain, loose and steep terrain. And the goal, because this is a work trip and not an expedition for fun, there is a pressure to get the work done quickly and to visit as many sites as possible in one day. And the people that are drawn to this work are often people that, like me, love being in the mountains, love hiking and climbing, and are really good at it, really fast and confident. And I love this work because it's a challenge to me, because it's something that doesn't come naturally to me, with my vision, with chronic illness, and just something that I didn't grow up doing. So I love to be out there, and I have the training and certifications and resume to be out there, but I do need to go slower sometimes, take a minute to calm down my anxieties, look more closely at the maps or more slowly at the maps to chart a route that I feel comfortable with. And at times, I felt like coworkers have been judgmental about me slowing the progress of the team down. Those moments have also looked like they've looked at a map, made a decision about what they want to do, and then don't understand that I also want to make a plan, to understand what we're doing, to look at the map, to chart the course. And in those moments, it feels frustrating.
I'm so happy you shared that. I mean, I've always been, not always, I've changed, but 15 years ago, I think in group situations, I was the type of leader who was like, come on, we got to go fast. And like, I'm making the decisions and like, let's go, let's go. And then as I got more work experience in the outdoors, I started to like notice those little moments of, okay, when you're hiking in a group, it's not about waiting for the last person to catch up and then moving on with the break, because they need a break too. And I truly didn't even consider that. So I really, really appreciate you sharing that story, because I think it's a good reminder for all of us that like we get stuck in our heads on this is my time outside and this is the way it's going and this is my experience, therefore it must be true, when really every single person on the team is having their own experience.
Yeah, and there have been moments too that because I spoke up for myself, other people have said, oh my gosh, I was feeling the same exact way. I was feeling so overwhelmed or tired. Like, I'm so glad you said something and spoke up. Or I've spoken up and said, hey, we need to slow down. I don't think that's the best route. Maybe we can go that way, but is it going to be the safest for everyone? Is it going to be the most efficient? And being that voice, I feel like as I've been more confident speaking up for myself in those moments, I've seen time and again that actually slowing down and being thoughtful has so many benefits for the safety of the team and also just for the camaraderie of the people around and just the overall vibe of the day.
Okay, now we gotta hear your Mount Baker story, since you said it was such a different vibe from those more frustrating experiences. What was it like when you got to the trailhead?
My pack, everyone's pack, was so heavy, filled with giant pots and all of our food for 5 days and crampons, all of our technical gear. And it was my first time spending much time in the Pacific Northwest, so I was oohing and awing at like every piece of moss that I saw, every big tree. And as we were climbing up, we actually passed some friends of the guides that were coming back down that day. They had just summited and were coming all the way back down. So they were absolutely exhausted, you could tell, but so stoked. So it was really cool to catch up with them and to hear about their experience and be like, wow, that's going to be me in just a few days. Finally, we made it to the spot of our base camp and we set up our mountaineering tents, which is really cool for me. It was the first time I've used a mountaineering tent. So it brought a lot of laughs and goofiness trying to figure out where all of those poles went and where the stakes went. We set up our camp and then the guides also dug out like a kitchen and benches and a little chill hangout spot in the shade with chairs. And it was super cool for me to see how you could build furniture with snow. Like I'd never seen that before. And then the next few days we spent learning the skills of mountaineering. We learned how to use the ice axe, how to self-arrest, which was so fun to just go sliding down the mountain, learn all of those skills. And it's crazy for me to think of that first day. I was nervous even. We picked a practice hill right beside our camp to practice going up and down with the mountaineering steps. And I remember being nervous even coming down that first hill and then to see how I progressed in just a few days after that. And then the second or third day, we got out the ropes and we learned how to tie into a rope team. And I remember I was super proud of myself because I knew already the alpine butterfly. And I was like, I got this. And then it started to get real because we planned to leave that night at 10:30 p.m. for our summit attempt. So we went to bed around 5 p.m. You can call it bed. We laid in the tent around 5 p.m. And I remember the guides had just given us some really good things to think about and advice for that preparatory phase before we left about how to calm your mind and your breathing and set intentions for the climb. And then at 10 p.m., we all got up and we got ready to go and we set off. And it was so beautiful. climbing in the middle of the night, you could see the Milky Way behind you and thousands of stars. And you could see just that and the glow from your headlamp. It felt like a totally different planet. And then as we climbed, you could also see the very first signs of the sunrise. And at that point, we were so high that you could almost see the sunrise like below you and the clouds rolling in below you, which was absolutely incredible.
Is there a quality or trait or strength in yourself that you didn't even realize you had or had as strongly until you were on Mount Baker?
I think that quality would be a relentless positivity. Like, the harder the situation became, the more stoked I got. And this isn't a trait. I do have it a lot of the times in my normal day-to-day life, but never as strongly as when I'm on an outdoor expedition. And I remember when we were on Baker, due to the warmer temperatures than average during that time, the snow lowered down on the mountain. Um, Down back to base camp after we summited was super slushy and melty. So every step you'd sink up to your knee or even up to your hip. And our rope team was constantly stopping while we dug ourselves out of this. And then it would be the next step, same thing. And so this was after we had already been climbing for 12 or more hours straight, and we still had miles and miles to go through this slush. And you would think that this would drive you absolutely crazy, but I remember feeling just a total peace wash over me and a calmness and a gratitude for this sort of absurd task that I was doing with a group of people that I really respected. And I remember just slipping and sliding down this mountain and singing to myself and almost playing in the snow like a kid.
Obviously, we all hope to stand on the summit when we head out for a mountaineering trip, but a summit is never guaranteed. Earlier, when you shared your wishes for your climb, you didn't actually mention a summit as a main goal, but instead the goal of contributing to a supportive community and to the building of trust within that community. So, did you reach that intention?
When you look at mountaineering and outdoor adventures from a purely analytical standpoint, it's full of suffering. Like, there's the physical pain, the environment is always trying to kill you. It can be isolating, it can be dangerous, it can be scary. What makes all the difference is who you're doing that with and whether you can trust them. And to me, it's the team that makes the whole sport worthwhile, that you can put yourself in a difficult situation, in a dangerous situation, and know that you'll be safe or know that you'll be with people that you can rely on to be as safe as possible. And so that really highlighted to me something that I had thought to be true in the past, that this sport really isn't about, it's not about getting to the summit. It's about the people that I'm doing it with and just hearing other people's stories and that they felt the same way.
Can you share a moment with us explaining when that magic of community came out for you?
One of the last nights on the trip, one of the guides, we were just having hot drinks, sitting around and chatting, and one of the guides asked to share a song that she loved. And she sang this beautiful song to us, and we all sort of sung with her and just enjoyed the moment. And then I asked to sing a song that I love and that I'm often singing to myself in my head over and over again while I'm hiking. And music is something that's been very personal to me in the past. I don't like to share it or play instruments or sing in front of people, but I just felt really accepted by the group and shared that with them. And it felt so nice to feel like in these few short days, I've formed a community that I trust to share something that's really meaningful to me and to know that it's going to be held in that space.
What song was it? What song did
It's
you sing?
called Captain Alberta Bundy by Isabelle. It's like a sea shanty. Yeah.
That's
You
so cool.
should.
I will have to look it up. That's fun. I asked Isabelle what she thinks women have to gain from spending more time outdoors in community with other women.
Trust in yourself for sure is something that I've found, and also that I can do, and that I like to do physically difficult things. As a person who struggled with chronic illness and just the way that I was raised to be a woman, I always was taught or assumed that physically difficult things weren't for me. It wasn't something I could do, it wasn't something I would enjoy. And when you spend time outdoors and you have to do those things and you have to rely on yourself, for me, I came to get a lot of self-esteem from being able to do those things and being able to do those things well. And I think that can translate a lot to your life in general.
I know that chronic illness in the outdoors is getting more discussed these days, but it still seems like a lot of guides and guiding companies get kind of stuck on how they can best support climbers or participants who have a chronic illness. I don't expect that you have, the answers to save the whole world here, but do you have any tips for companies or guides or examples of what you've seen done well when it comes to guiding people with chronic illness?
I think one thing to keep in mind is that a diagnosis with any sort of chronic illness doesn't mean that you can't adventure to your full capacity. I've talked with a lot of guides and other adventurers that seem to think, oh, because you have this chronic illness, you probably just want to go to the trailhead, or you probably don't want to do the most gnarly climb or be out there for multiple days. And I think starting with the assumption that you can do anything and then working to find ways to get that done instead of just assuming that if you come in with what you might call limitations, it means that you want to take things easy on yourself. Like I also want to challenge myself to my full ability. I think another thing that I would recommend for guides and for people that are going on adventures with people who have different illnesses or limitations to take your ego out of it as much as you can. It's not about getting there as fast as possible or as stylishly as possible. It can be really beneficial and impactful to everyone if you're there to empower the group to adventure in the way that they can. We're all taking risks when we're out there, and you shouldn't assume that someone with a chronic illness or a limitation can't make a decision that's best for them.
This reminds me of the concept called dignity and risk, this idea that self determination and risk taking are essential to self esteem, and that taking away those freedoms is dehumanizing. Dignity is a feeling we all need to feel as humans. And when an adventure gets challenging, I'm curious what qualities you notice come alive in yourself to keep that sense of dignity both in yourself and in others.
When you're physically connected by a rope when you're mountaineering, you have to be concerned not just with yourself and how you're doing, but with how each individual person is doing. The selflessness that outdoor adventure instills in me, I'm really thankful for, and it's something I can take with me to other aspects of my life. Another quality I think is this idea of hard and then easy. This was a quote that an EMT instructor of mine would always say, do the hard thing and then the easy thing. So when you're on an outdoor adventure, this looks like, okay, before you can rest, before you can go lay in your tent or maybe eat your own dinner, filter your water, pack your bag, organize yourself, and then rest and eat. When you're on an adventure and you have these objectives, you have to stay disciplined to benefit yourself and to benefit the team. And that discipline is something that I feel like outdoor adventure has really cultivated in me. I find myself at home when I want to lay in bed and watch Netflix, but I really need to cook dinner using that same phrasing. Okay, hard and then easy.
Isabelle, if you could make a wish that would come true for women in the outdoor world, what would it be?
My wish for other women in the outdoors is that they know that they belong there and that they are strong and capable, and that you have a community of other women cheering you on and supporting you.
Isabelle Riddle is one of many incredible women who got a chance to experience a transformative wilderness experience through the Summit Scholarship Foundation. Every year, the Summit Scholarship Program offers a series of mountaineering stipends to help break down the barriers to entry to the big mountain realm for women and gender diverse adventurers from all walks of life. We all face our own challenges in life, but getting access to a supportive outdoor community shouldn't be one of them. The outdoor industry has a long way to go before all people can feel welcomed in the mountains, whether it's because of chronic illness, a visible or invisible disability, family lineage that's been marginalized for generations, or the societal expectations of your sex or gender. I believe that the first step is to elevate the stories of people who have been previously left out of adventure circles, even if it's uncomfortable to do so. After all, in the words of Isabelle herself, pain, like nature, is a wise teacher. You can become a supporter of the Alliance for Gender Equity in Outdoor Adventure, and I'll give you a few options on how you can do so. Number 1, apply to become a trailblazer through the Cairn Project. Trailblazers design an adventure fundraiser that crowdfunds scholarships to help girls, women, and gender diverse adventurers experience the transformative power of time in the wilderness. Go to www.cairnproject.org to learn more. 2, you can spread the word about the Summit Scholarship Foundation to help us advance gender equity on and off the mountain. Check it out at www.summitscholarship.org. And 3, you can share this episode of the See Her Outside podcast with a friend. Every share, 5-star review, or comment helps us share stories to get more girls outside. See Her Outside is hosted by me, Angie Marie, and edited by Allison Castingway. Until next time, go get outside.